Are you ready to break through the mental barriers holding you back? Welcome to the Mind Mastered Secrets of Excellence with Don Grant. Since 2001, Don has been guiding elite athletes like PGA Tour champions, Olympians, and world champions, and everyday individuals toward peak performance. With a proven track record, including helping Vijay Singh win the 2008 FedEx Cup, and her PGA Tour clients averaging a 219% increase in earnings. Dawn knows what it takes to succeed. She's the inventor of the Mind Mastered app, author of 7 Strokes in 7 Days, a sought-after speaker worldwide, and the proud owner of Amelia Shotgun Sports in Northeast Florida. Join us as we dive into powerful strategies, inspiring interviews, and Dawn's unique insights to help you excel in every area of your life, sports, career, relationships, and beyond. And now, here's your host, Don Grant.
All right, guys, I have Josh O'Connor here, who is in Fernandina and is an avid fisherman and has a shop related to lots of good fishing, cool stuff. And I'm sure there's a lot more that we're going to learn here. So thanks for being here, Josh.
Sure, Don. Thanks so much for the opportunity. Happy to be on.
Yeah. Well, so give a little synopsis to the listeners as to who the heck are you and what are you up to, and give them a little taste of what we're going to dive into.
All right. So I am the managing partner of RennWorks Outdoors here in Fernandina Beach, Amelia Island. We're a local family-owned business. We service everything from light tackle fishing gear all the way to fly fishing, including apparel, specializing more in technical apparel. I don't do a lot of just general clothing. It's more foul weather gear and then high-end sun performance gear. And then as far as fishing, we do everything from fly fishing for trout in the mountains all the way to marlin fishing off the coast here. So we do just about everything. We're a full service outfitter.
That sounds like we're going to learn a lot. That's all interesting. So when did you start fishing?
So I was pretty much as soon as I could walk, I was fishing. It's something that's been a part of our family. My great-grandmother taught my dad how to fish, and we've fished together as a family pretty much since I was born. And we've done a little bit of everything from fly fishing in the mountains to offshore fishing and really kind of all over the world. Anywhere there's water, we'll try to fish when we're on vacation.
So where were you fishing at this young age? Where'd you grow up?
So I grew up here on Amelia Island in Fernandina Beach. I grew up fishing the salt flats here, mainly with my dad and my uncle. We would go and we would either flood tide fish, or either we'd low tide fish for redfish, or we would be at our place in Georgia and it would be bass fishing and bluegill sun fishing.
And have you just totally loved it the whole time?
Pretty much. It's been a passion of mine ever since I've grown up, and it was kind of something Dad and I always had the back of our minds about having a shop, and it was just something that materialized. But it's kind of been a mainstay for our family. We had a common place where we could all get together and do it, and so that's mainly where it began, out of kind of a passion for us, and then it's just bloomed into more.
I gotcha. So when you were a child and growing up and in high school and just getting out of high school, what did you think you were going to do when you grew up?
So where I started, just delving back into getting out of high school, got accepted to Florida State and went there, and I knew it would be something either in the sciences or the math field or business, and ended up in accounting doing taxation. And so didn't necessarily see myself being a tax accountant, but the base was good. Always wanted to be an entrepreneur. Grew up in a family. Uncle owns a business. Dad owns multiple businesses. I guess I'm a 6th generation small business owner. So always knew being in small business is where I would land, just not exactly sure what industry. And so ended up getting an accounting degree, both undergrad and graduate. Kind of moving forward out of high school, I got my CPA license and worked in corporate tax at a Big 4 firm, worked at Deloitte for a couple of years before getting out.
How do you see that carrying over to being a co-owner now and running this business? Do you see a lot of that being used?
I do. I don't see as much of the corporate tax structure being used. It's they don't teach you too much in college about your small business perspective. However, it is very useful with having business conversations. I have a great basis in knowing how to research. A big part of tax accounting is knowing how to research. So that has helped a great deal with the business I'm in now. If I need to find answers to something, know the appropriate sites to look for, the person to call has been very helpful. And then, of course, on the bookkeeping side.
I had a professor in college that said something like, I won't be able to remember the exact words, but he said something like, college really teaches you how to find information. because the information's always going to be changing in 5, 10, 15, 20 years, down the road. What you're learning right now is not going to be applicable. It's going to evolve. So what you're really learning here is how to find information and how to, seek out knowledge and learn, figure out what you need for that time.
For sure. I would 100% agree with that. College, to me, it was two things. It was an endurance test to see if you could make it. That was a big part of the accounting field. Accounting pretty much ranked with pre-med and engineering as level of difficulty. We had many courses where fail rates were over 60%. So it was mainly an endurance test to see if you could make it. And then after that, it was, yes, how do you find information? And then how do you structure it properly to make it understandable?
Yeah. So how long now have you been out of college?
I have been out 10 years this past August is when I graduated grad school.
And then you did the corporate accounting for a few years?
Yes. I did corporate accounting. Biggest client that I had at one time was a little over $2 billion a year. Did federal and state tax. And then after that, I moved to a smaller family firm for a short period of time and then started branching out to figure out where kind of an entrepreneurship wanted to be, what business to move into.
Yeah. So how long ago did you start this particular business?
So RennWorks Outdoors, we actually just passed our 5th anniversary and we started October of 2019. And so it's hard to believe it's made it this far. It's been bunch of trial and error, but it's been good. But it's hard to believe we're at 5 years already.
Yeah, because that was right on the front end of COVID, right?
It was. So we opened October of 19 and then went to a trade show January of 20. Almost everyone at the trade show ended up getting sick with a very bad respiratory virus. Come to find out later, more than likely it was COVID. And that really is about the first time we heard about COVID was mid-January of 20. And actually, we asked many of our vendors at that time what they thought about COVID with the shutdowns. They said they assured us we had plenty of product in the pipeline, which of course was not true. Really, COVID for our store was a trial by fire. It made us grow faster and actually made us add more capital to the store than maybe we would have initially done.
Preparing for possible issues with supply. Is that what you're saying?
Mainly, and then in this industry, a lot of stores deal with distribution, which is a company that'll be kind of a middleman between you and say one of the larger Shimano's, Pure Fishing, something of that nature, that will carry a ton of all these different brands. And then what they'll do is you can buy pieces of them. What COVID forced us to do to be able to fill our shelves and to be able to buy enough product, we ended up having to write quite a few companies direct early on as a small company. So what it did, a lot of those companies had anywhere from $2,000 to $10,000 buy-in. So it made us have to invest more capital than maybe we would have otherwise. It really has worked better for us in the long run, but it was definitely a change of business model from where we had planned it to be.
For sure. So you did the corporate accounting. You've always loved fishing. You knew you wanted to be an entrepreneur, and you had been talking here and there with your father, right, about opening this kind of business. So tell me what life was like there. How long did you guys talk about it over the, dinner table or holidays before you pulled the trigger?
So it was kind of interesting how all that occurred. We also have a metal fabrication shop as one of our other businesses, and we had a project come up where we needed to produce some custom sand spikes for a customer. So we went on the hunt to see where we could maybe buy these items in bulk to add the stainless spikes to them, and ended up signing to buy those spikes with one of the largest outdoor distributors in the country. Dad and I kind of sat down and said, well, maybe in our construction office, we'll bring in some rods, bring in some reels. We've always kind of fished. Let's start with a small section. We went to our first trade show, started talking about a little bit more. We said, well, we've got an office next door in one of our buildings that's about 1,000 square feet. Why don't we move it over there? Let's put a little bit more product into it and let's just see what happens. Dad and I joke, we remember going to our first show and buying our first 20 rods and reels, and we thought we were crazy because we said, we don't know what we're going to do with all this, but we're going to try it. After that, it slowly started taking off, and really it morphed into something as he and I would sit down and we'd have pretty much weekly meetings and say, okay, where do we want to go next? How much further do we want to take it? Because really it'll grow as fast as much money as you'll push to it, it'll grow. And so trying to determine exactly where we wanted to be and then what our niche market would be, we quickly kind of determined that we wanted to be a little bit more towards the mid to higher range market to satisfy those here in Nassau County, and then to be able to have gear that you couldn't really find anywhere else but online. And that niche has really worked for us. Thankfully, even though online ordering is becoming more and more difficult for brick and mortar stores. Thankfully, in the fishing industry, people like to try the clothing on. They like to try the reels before they buy them. That's really helped. But really in the planning stages, it was something Dad and I sat down with and took baby steps with it and said, well, we'll try it a little bit more. And then once we outgrew the 1,000 square feet, we did our most recent expansion, which we've almost tripled in size. And so it's just been something that's just slowly grown.
How'd you come up with the name?
So last name being O'Connor, we have a leasehold company called Renico, which is O'Connor spelled backwards. Really, RennWorks was more of just a beginning name. It was something that we thought, well, maybe we'll start with it because that was also what our fab shop was called, was RennWorks Fabrication. And we said, well, we'll do RennWorks Outdoors, see kind of how everything morphs, and then maybe we'll change the name later. And really, the name just kind of stuck, and we really haven't changed it ever since then. So it's just been something that just kind of stayed around.
Yeah. So you've spoken of different businesses. Are you part owner with, I guess, your father on each of these?
So he and I are in some of them together, and then he's got some on his own. As a family, we've done everything from aviation businesses to construction to land development, a little bit of everything. We'll kind of try anything to make a dollar. So we've been in everything from land clearing to, like I said, land development, building buildings. Actually, the steel warehouse I'm in right now, we build it. This building's been here since 1997. So I'm in some of the businesses with him, and then some of them he's in by himself.
Uh-huh. Yeah, when I first went to your store, I was surprised at the location, because it's not roadside and it's down in a commercial area. And I was like, wow, to have a store like yours doing well down back in an industrial park, basically. And so tell me about that. Were you concerned at all that your business wouldn't do well in it, being that it was an industrial park?
So that came into the conversation, and it still does. It's something that to this day we still discuss. It was something more of kind of a test spot for us to see how it was going to go. Everything here on the island is so expensive to rent. It allowed us to cut our overhead while the store was essentially a toddler growing up and getting on its feet and getting moving. It allowed us to cut that overhead expense by keeping it internal within the family. We could do some different things here since we already own the space, and that's mainly the reason for the location. At some point in the future, we may very well build a store at another location, either on another piece of property that we own, or we may look at buying another location. But it has been something that we have discussed, and it was something back when we first opened that it was kind of going to be a temporary spot and then move, and it's just kind of stuck and it's worked. I mean, COVID, we were thankful with the way it went with COVID that we were in a spot that we did own, because really it would have been very difficult to make the store grow the way it needed to during that time with also having a super high overhead.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
And so mainly that's the reason for the location. Like I said, future plans, looking 5 years down the road, maybe sooner, we'll probably build a building to make it more street front.
Yeah, and meanwhile, people know where you are, and they've already established a name and a reputation in the industry, right?
We have, and that was kind of our goal, is to provide superior customer service and to build that customer base and really make it a destination store. And that has worked very well for us by using dealer locator sites. We're an Orvis authorized retailer, so by having these larger brands and getting on their dealer locator sites, it really makes it where people will come and find the store, as opposed to just necessarily being a walk-in. Now, there will always be good walk-in traffic, but our core customer group that we have, they will actually go and hunt a store out if they know there's one that carries something they're looking for.
Gotcha. Yeah. So how big is the fishing industry around here?
So it's large. Nationally, it's in the billions of dollars. Many companies, Florida actually takes about 70% of their revenue. Florida is one of the biggest fishing industries by state. It is one that we can fish year round. We have a lot of guys here that troll and will outfit boats, but especially the further south you go as well, it's some of the best fishing in the world. And so these guys are willing to spend money on gear year round. So as a whole, Florida is one of the best places to be in the fishing industry. And now you are seeing some shops consolidating, some shops closing, especially down south. But there's a lot of competition there. That's another reason we opened the shop here, being from here. And then at that time, there was really a desert of higher end outfitters between Jacksonville and then say to about Hilton Head. There was a few shops there, but really there wasn't anything around. So we have actually managed to pull a lot of our customer base out of South Georgia just because there was just nothing there. And so they used to go down to Jacksonville for everything. And now we've kind of made a midway point that they can stop.
I could see that. So if somebody wants to buy somebody a Christmas present or several, what type of things do you have there for the avid fisherman?
So we actually do two things. We do have a wish list program that has worked very, very well. We keep wish list in stock year round. Rods and reels are very, very hard to buy for someone unless you have the exact SKU of what they're looking for. And so we have a wish list program that we keep in. It's been very popular, and so everybody gets exactly what they want. But if someone doesn't know what the person's looking for, we have everything from hand-tied flies. We can put custom boxes together. We have pliers, and then we have things such as belts, keychains, beanies, hats. We can do custom spooling of reels if guys know exactly what they want. On a reel, we can, and then on the apparel side, a lot of our Christmas sales come on the apparel side. We carry AFCO, Marshwear, Ems, Orvis, Fishy women's wear. And so a lot of our sales will come because you don't know what to do, or a good last minute present for someone is always a t-shirt, or you can buy them a jacket or something like that. And we offer a fairly flexible return program. So if something doesn't fit for someone over the holidays, we're very flexible with our customers to make sure it's right.
You do have an impressive store. And I was like looking in there at the clothes, like, oh, I'd like a few of these things myself. And my fiance loves fishing. So we've been in a lot of bait and tackle little shops around, whether it's South Georgia or Fernandina, and definitely your store is just stocked with some great stuff.
Yeah, and it's something, especially we try to cater on the women's clothing side. The fishing industry is very far behind in providing technical wear for women as a whole. They've slowly caught on to the fact that more ladies are fishing and that they need the same gear as what, say, their husbands, fiancés, boyfriends are wearing on the boat. Used to be ladies would have to buy for sun shirts. They'd have to buy, say, a men's small or medium or something of that nature to fit. Now they're actually creating women's clothing, which is fantastic. They're actually listening to feedback. A lot of the companies, Marshwear, is coming out with some fantastic women's wear. That is items they always made on the men's side, but women always wanted it. So they're tapering them in a little bit better colors. And so, the women's market is something that's growing, and that's something we try to cater to in the shop.
Yeah, I'm laughing because some of what you just said, I hadn't even realized I was doing. So first of all, I have several men's sun shirts that I wear, and because it's been chilly here. So like, I don't know, maybe a week ago or 5 days ago, we went fishing on the boat, and, Joe's like, make sure you bundle up. It's going to be colder because it's windy out also. And I'm like, sure. So I got, long johns, but I layered up all my girl clothes. Like,
Oh, yeah.
I had like a beret, I had one of my nice wool scarves, and we were driving there and he kept looking at me and laughing. I'm like, what? Because I'm just bundled up to be warm. Like, that's what I'm thinking. And he was like, you're like a 10-star resort going fishing. Like, I'm just layered on clothes. But yeah, so I hadn't really thought about it. And he had said, we need to get you some fishing clothes. We need to get you a bib. We need to get you some things. So I'm like, why? I'm fine. He's like, no.
There's a lot you can accomplish with a good set of bibs and a hoodie.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as just good fishing wear that you don't mind getting dirty, and it is, he's right, bibs and jackets. And thankfully, AFCO has come out now with a lighter set and a heavier set. And it makes all the difference in the world, especially if you start getting into a lot of spray. It's nice to have something there. But you're right, a lot of ladies were doing the same thing. And we hear the story often about, oh, I layered with all this clothing and hope it doesn't get wet and all this other stuff.
It was quite the sight. I took a picture of it. I put it on social media. I'm like, well, I don't know why he's saying I look like I'm at a 10-star resort. And then 20 minutes later, I'm wearing his hunter camouflage big old jacket. I'm like, now this is more his style. But it was kind of funny.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, sometimes I just tell guys, I wear skiing clothing whenever I run. I have friends, we fish in small technical skiffs in like January, February. It might be 28, 30 degrees, and we look like we're going skiing. We're in huge jackets, gloves, the whole bit of it.
Well, and in my brain, a bib and all that, I'm thinking that's for fly fishing when you're standing in the water. That's in my brain, what I know.
Yeah, it's very similar. They're just thinner and no booties at the bottom. So
Yeah.
You'll just put on like a pair of boots. But yeah, it's pretty much the same thing as a pair of waders.
Yeah. So do you see a lot of women come in there? to get their fishing supplies?
We do. We have a lot of ladies that shop with us in the shop. Most of the time, their husbands will come in to look for other things, or they'll be on the hard gear side, rod, reels, things of that nature. And then the ladies will come in and they'll stick more to the apparel side. And usually they'll buy a couple of items, then we'll see them come back. We do try to also carry some items that aren't exactly fishing related. Especially in the spring, we'll carry skirts, tank tops, we'll carry leggings, some different things that can be used for, we sell a lot of
Outdoors.
skirts. Yeah, for ladies that play pickleball, we sell a lot of skirts to that market, a lot of tank tops to that market. And so we try to diversify not only in things that are fishing related, but things that can be used, bathing suit cover-ups and things of that nature, things that'll kind of branch out a little bit.
I agree. That's smart because it is hard to find outdoorsy things. I think there's one store that I know of near downtown. That's it. That as far as outdoorsy things for women. What about, do you have concerns about Academy opening up?
So that was something that we had on our radar. And what we have done is tried to carry things. Academy and a lot of the big box stores buy through distribution. So they are limited sometimes on the reels that they can carry or will carry. And so what it does, it forces us to carry some more mid to high range to ultra high range gear to kind of make ourselves different. And so really we're not too terribly concerned about it. We've taken a look at it. It's a great store. I think it's going to do well here in Nassau County. But as far as the fishing aspect of it, what we'll have, we've just changed up our offering just a little bit, but for the most part, we're staying kind of the same as what we were. Our products are different. And so what we're kind of catering to some of the offshore market and some of these other more specialty lines, shark fishing, some of these other things, that'll still stay with the small specialty shops.
I gotcha. So how much do you get to fish now? Are you like one of the, the painter that doesn't paint his own house, or owning a shotgun club? How often do I really shoot? What about you with fishing?
That's about right. We have become the same way. Since we've opened the store with it being open 6 days a week, we fish very little. What we do now, I'll sneak out flood tide seasons, late summer, early fall for red fishing. I will take a couple of days and go with some friends during that time. Otherwise, we've tried to make it where we schedule a couple of trips a year. Either we're going offshore here, either we'll schedule a fly fishing trip in the mountains and essentially block out sections on our calendar to go, because if we didn't, we wouldn't go.
Yeah.
It just gets so busy, and especially like this time of the year, there's just no time to take off to go.
I've never personally fly fished. I remember my father fly fishing when we lived in Washington State, and just always admiring it. I don't know. It just looks like such a beautiful thing to do. And then the times that we've been to like Yellowstone, especially the north side, and leaving through that exit, there's some beautiful rivers in there. And there's always people fly fishing. I'm like, that looks like the most beautiful, peaceful sport there is.
It really is. Here in the saltwater, it's fantastic. It's great to get out on the boat, be on a poling skiff, and going out and chasing redfish is a blast. But there is something about trout fishing in the mountains when you're out in a stream, no one else around you, especially if you're in some of the protected areas where it's a lot of private land. Last trip we did with a guy was on private land in North Georgia. Didn't see another fisherman all day. And I mean, I could spend hours out there. It is just serene. It's beautiful. The trout, a lot of them are wild fish. So it's great to see them. The colors are gorgeous, but just walking and being in a stream in nature all day, no cell phone service, it's some of the best items to kind of get some more mental clarity, especially if there's a lot that's been going on. It's great just to get out there, get in a stream, and just not do anything, but just kind of focus on what's around you.
Yeah, since my specialty is mental stuff, let's talk about that. So you recognize if you've got a lot going on when you go fishing, and that's kind of a way to decompress or help clear your mind?
It is. I've always loved nature growing up. Pink spoonbills here were something growing up. I just remember us always commenting on. They were beautiful to see. Just being in nature in general, to me, it clears my mind. It allows me to kind of reevaluate and just take a step away from everything and just get out and just kind of get lost in nature for a little while. It's a really a wonderful thing. And really here we are in Northeast Florida. We're very fortunate to have what we have as far as our waterways and just the beautiful nature that we have.
The spoonbills are absolutely one of my favorites as well. They're so pretty. And I think they're so unique. Having the spoonbill actually dig for, I think it's so cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and their pink color, I mean, you can see them a mile away, especially when we're going in and that the marsh grass is blooming and it's bright green. I mean, to me, there's just nothing more beautiful than seeing those birds doing what they do out there.
I've lived in the area for 30 years, and my father was in the Navy, so we moved a lot. And I've lived in a lot of different places and different corners of the United States, and spent a lot of years in Washington State, which to me was just jaw-droppingly beautiful. And we did a lot of camping, and you could pull over on any road basically and walk through the woods because they didn't have that lower like brush and all that we have here. And so when I first moved here, I missed being able to camp. First of all, camp like I was used to, camping where it's not 100 degrees and humid and you're not going to get eaten alive by bugs,
Oh,
and
yeah.
hiking where you could just walk anywhere in the woods and just enjoy it. I mean, and the smell of it and the ability to do that. And the other thing, being new to the area, I was like, how is the marsh pretty? It looks like swamp to me. Like, this is swamp. Why are they even calling it marsh? It's like a bunch of swampland. And I didn't think that was pretty at all, but holy, it has grown on me so much. I love being out in the marsh and seeing the birds and so many different kinds of birds, or being on the greenway and seeing all the animals. And I like to ride my bike around a lot, and I'll go fishing with Joe, and I'll fish probably half the time that he does. And I'm absolutely totally fine with it because, first of all, I enjoy watching him fish. But the other is I just love being out there. It's just so, so pretty. But I actually have also come to appreciate the fishing for I don't know if I'm going to say mindlessness of it. Now, I'm not strategic. He's over there figuring out the rigs, figuring out where the boat should stop. Like, I'm not having to think about any of that. I'm just showing up. I don't even have to bait my hook. So it really is mindless for me. But I find it funny. Like, he's moved down from South New Jersey, so he's trying to figure out the waters. It's taken a little while. But he recently, in the last 2 months, have started catching fish regularly and has come to really love catching the redfish that you mentioned.
Yeah, so moving here is, and we encounter this with our customers, can be not that serene type of fishing we were discussing. It can be very frustrating. We're a very unique fishery in our tidal systems, how the water clarity works, how the salinity works. Growing up here, I never really thought much about it, but after opening the shop and being in it for a little while now, I can see how it can be very, very frustrating. We've got a lot of customers that'll fish here, move here for a year and a half and barely catch anything. And it's not as much fun for them until they kind of get used to it.
Yeah.
But you're right though. It's unique, but once you get used to it, it really is great.
Yeah, and I don't remember which place. So South Jersey, I think he used to fish either high tide or low tide, and it was the exact opposite here, which I don't remember which one. And now we hear so many different things. Like, somebody will say low tide, someone will say high tide, someone will say the hour before and hour after. The next person says 2 hours before and 2 hours after. But finding holes is what's now right next to oyster beds, where it kind of drops off, and there can be a hole there that's just full of these redfish or whatever. And we haven't found the monster ones yet, though.
Yeah, and this has been an exceptional year for us. I've seen more larger fish caught and more abundance of fish caught this year than I have in the last few years. But you're right, trying to find those places. And yeah, I'm a 2 hour before low, 2 hour after low guy. But yeah,
Okay.
Everybody's got their own depending on where their spots are.
Yeah, it actually has been really interesting. It's a game of hide and seek, and they're hiding, and you don't know where to find them. And then once he finds a few holes, he's excited. He's like, I'm going back tomorrow. I'm going to catch them in the same spot, and then they're not there.
Yeah, that's right. It can be very, very challenging at times, and sometimes, especially during the very, very cold months, during January and February, when those water temps dip below 50 degrees, it really can get tough. The fish get very lethargic. But yeah, you're right. There are times, though, it can really drive you crazy.
Yeah, and we've been told to fish right outside the creek opening as the tide's going out and it's low, so that basically those little fish are coming out and the big ones are waiting. And so in my brain, I think creek, all these little tiny creeks. He was thinking a big creek, you've got Amelia River, and then a big creek coming off of it. And he was wanting to fish the mouth of that. And I kept saying, I think people are meaning the little ones, the little feeders that go into that big one. Because to me, it makes sense. Less water, there are fish coming out, and the fish are going to get them. Not this much water,
Yeah, and you're right. Those feeders are what you're looking for because, yes, those feeders go and they flush out the shrimp, flush out of the grass with it, and they do. Those trout, the redfish, the black drum, they sit
Yeah.
at the mouths of those creeks, and that's what they're waiting on. They're waiting on food to come to them.
Yeah. And that's why you like the low tide yourself.
I like low tide unless I'm doing flood tide fishing. When our marshes flood and fish for tailing redfish, that is one of, hands down, my favorite times to fish. And really, you can kind of blend fishing and hunting with it 'cause you can marsh and hunt on the same tide. But that red fishing is some of my favorite at high. But otherwise, yes, I'm a outgoing tide to beginning of up incoming tide person.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's really come to appreciate the actual catching of a redfish. He's like, they're so fun to catch because they're very active, right?
They are, and they're a very special fish. I was actually happy to see shortly after COVID, they reduced the limit down to 1. The redfish population took a pretty good hit during COVID with so many people fishing and being able to keep 2 fish. Redfish tend to spend a lot of the beginning of their life within a few mile stretch for at least the first 3 to 5 years. And so a lot of those fish were depleted during COVID. So to see them coming back, and you're right, to catch them, some of them have the most gorgeous blue tails on the end of them. They're just a great fish.
And they're so good, aren't they, as far as eating?
They're a great fish blackened. I mean, they're pan-seared. They're fantastic to eat.
We've been leaving the skin on one side, putting it on the grill, and just putting a little bit of lemon and salt and pepper and olive oil. And oh my gosh, so juicy and delicious.
They are. And leaving that skin on, a lot of the fish, they'll have that little layer of fat between the skin and the meat, and it keeps it moist. So yeah, cooking on the half shell is fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah. We're learning.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's one of those, just the more you get into it, the more you'll learn. Fishing, especially around here, is one of those, you'll just learn more from doing it. Just kind of deal.
Yeah. So I am curious, going back to the COVID time and owning a shotgun club, outdoor activity, right? There was a lot of clubs around the country that were slammed during COVID. They were like busy because it was an outdoor sport, but mine wasn't. And so I'm curious. I mean, I know you guys just started during COVID, but there were a lot of people fishing during that time.
There were. The fishing industry saw one of the biggest booms it's seen in years during the years of COVID. With us being newly established, we got to see some of it, but in reality, we really couldn't take full advantage of it. We didn't have backstock. We didn't have some of these other things that some of the older shops had. However, the fishing industry as a whole got one of the biggest boosts that it's ever had. That was a good thing and a bad thing because COVID, it wasn't one of those where it lasted maybe a year. A lot of guys saw this boom for about 3 years and they got used to those higher numbers. There's actually been some shops that have closed due to overextending and some other things where they went in and spent all this money thinking it was going to last. And now that COVID's over, guys are selling their boats. People aren't fishing like they were. They're not coming in and having the extra income, and plus you have inflation on top of that is taking more income. But yes, during COVID, we definitely, for us, it was hard to gauge because we had no numbers to gauge it against. For shops that had been in the business for many years, they said it was some of the best business they'd ever had.
Nice. Yeah, it was hard to figure out what people were doing or not doing, and it was an odd time, wasn't it? Such a weird time.
It was challenging. And thankfully in the state of Florida, that was something that we kind of, when COVID first started, we called the health department here and said, hey, what do you want us to do? Do we need to close? Can we stay open? Because a lot of retail stores had to close or have limited hours. And they actually told us, since we were a fishing shop and fishing allowed for people to go and catch food, we actually needed to stay open. As long as we did CDC mandates and everything else, we were more than welcome to stay open for normal operating hours. So we were very blessed during that time to be able to do that because many small businesses were not able to have that. And then plus being in Florida with a little bit looser restrictions, after about the first 3 months, things really opened back up.
For sure. What are some other challenges that you guys have faced or you have faced? You know, being an entrepreneur is not easy. Starting a business, growing a business, personal life, self-care, not working all the time. What are some of the things that you've noticed?
So those definitely were some challenges, especially during the first couple of years, trying to get it off the ground. Today, I definitely am more comfortable with stepping away from the computer in the evenings and doing some other things like that. I feel in some ways the store is finally getting to a point where in some ways it can almost run itself on certain items. But for the first couple of years, that was very daunting. It was 7 days a week, even though we were only open for 6, that one off day between going to church on Sunday. And then after that would come in, do inventory, and then try to figure out where we could get product during COVID and things of that nature. There were definitely some challenges there, and working many 80 to 100-hour weeks just trying to get it off the ground. Definitely was challenging. I know starting a new business, that's part of what goes into it, but just trying to balance things, it has its challenges. And thankfully, as the store is getting, now that it's over 5 years, definitely have learned how to better balance some of those, learn to kind of look and say, okay, I can handle that email tomorrow. I can do this project tomorrow. Definitely learning more efficient ways to conduct different business practices. This is our first retail venture, so that was kind of trial by fire, trying to figure out how much do you order. Like we're about to go into now our booking season for apparel. We'll buy, as soon as this Christmas is over, we'll buy next Christmas. And so you buy a full year in advance. And so things like that have gotten easier than they were the first couple of years. The first couple of years, it was really kind of a shot in the dark.
Well, tell me about that, because I've not been in retail. So is that because there's really great sales right after Christmas that you're trying to grab onto, or what would be the reason to buy a year in advance like that?
So it's actually, in the apparel world, that's actually kind of accepted to buy a full year or close to a year in advance of the upcoming season. And mainly what it allows the apparel companies to do, it says, okay, this style has pre-sold, say, 10,000 of this one item, but in a certain color, we only sold 1,000. What they'll do is go ahead and cut that out of their lineup for that upcoming season, and they won't spend the money on it. So it's more of forecasting for the actual companies themselves. And so really they kind of pigeonhole everyone into doing that because it's how you guarantee that you will actually get new styles. If there's new items that you want, new colors, and things like that, you actually most of the time need to book them. There's certain shirts, like this year, there's a Marshwear olive camo shirt. That shirt's been very, very hard to get. If we wouldn't have pre-booked it, we would have never gotten them. And so mainly it's more of a forecasting tool for the companies themselves. For us, it's kind of nice because I know once I've done that and moved it out of my brain, I know, okay, 11/1 next year, say November 1st, I know I'll have Marshwear, AFCO. Some of these others will be coming in with our Christmas items, and it allows me to kind of plan. In some ways, it's kind of nice from the accounting side because I can say, okay, this is our budget for this year. This is what I want to spend. I can go ahead and allocate it, and then I know it's done.
And are you ordering and paying a year in advance, or just ordering?
Just ordering. So don't pay until after it ships. That way you know what you're going to actually get, because a lot of times quantities that you order may not be available in the full quantities that you need.
And then you are also picking out, like, you're getting images of what the next season attire looks like. You're not just saying, well, we'll take certain many men's shirts and women's shirts or whatever. You're actually picking it out.
Yes, and we get these order books that have CAD designs in them that have somewhat of an idea of what the garment will look like. The colors in them are not always the best, but it at least gives us an idea. And being in the business as long as we have now, a lot of these different clothings, a lot of the structures of how they're built, I've either seen the colors or I've seen clothing similar to it before, and it gives us a much better idea of how to order. And so that is something actually of longevity of being in business has become much easier than what it used to be. Booking used to take, it would take sometimes 24 to 48 hours of actual work hours to get booking done. Now we've dwindled that down. We can probably get it done in around 20. Maybe a little less, depending on how much we're pre-booking.
Interesting. I've definitely seen in the clay shooting industry, they're attempting to have us do what you're talking about. We're not being pigeonholed yet. It's not like forcing, they're just encouraging. Because for what you said, they'd like to plan their year, right? So it's not only, it's for ammo, but it's also for the targets. And I just got an email a few weeks ago where they were kind of like asking nicely, you get an incentive, you get this year's prices if you go ahead and plan out pre-order for the whole year. But the problem that I found is just not knowing, like this big question mark of not knowing what business will actually be happening in March, April, May, June, July, August, and to actually commit. So for me, truckload of targets is $25,000, and a pallet of ammo is like $12,000. To actually sit down and go, okay, well, I'll take, I'll get a truck in February, another one in April, and like, how do you commit to? I don't even know how to do that. I mean, I like to see what's happening with the business and then decide, along the way.
It's got its challenges for sure, because we ran into the same issue. This year's a perfect example, being an election year. A lot of our booking orders for tackle for next year was due before the election, and we went very conservative on them because not you just didn't know how people were going to react. People's spending was already slowing, and depending on how things went, how consumer confidence was going to be, it really was trying. And so it's very difficult. In the fishing industry, they do offer benefits a lot of times if you do book. I see it a lot more in the fly brands. Fly branding, depending on how you book, will determine what you buy gear at for the rest of the year. And so they have certain tiered levels. Fly in particular is one where booking is key. But yeah, we see it pretty much in every facet of our industry. On the fishing side, booking has become a norm for those guys, that you'll go in. You may not put everything on there that you'll need, but the bulk majority of what you need, try to do at booking.
Yeah.
For those seasons. But it's hard to gauge because it's scary. You look at these invoices and you're like, man, 10,000, 25,000, 30,000. You're like, man, I hope consumers continue to spend and stay kind of how they have historically.
So is there any kind of penalty? So let's say, you say, yeah, we want all this stuff in a year, and come November, business isn't as great as you had hoped. And you're like, oh my gosh, I have all this stuff coming in December. Are you able to cancel without penalty, or like, how does that work?
So thankfully, normally we can. I've got some pretty good reps, and I can a lot of times be very transparent with them and say, hey, look, this is what's going on. Can you work with us? Can you help us to maybe reduce some of these quantities? A lot of the brands give us up to like a 30-day grace period. So if we're within about a month to 60 days of a shipment, something this year that happened that I have seen happen in the past is as soon as a company, say if I wanted something to come in November 1st, say they get it in the warehouse September 15th, they would go ahead and ship it September 15th and say, well, we're going to give you the same terms to pay for it. What that does, it makes it where you can't cancel it. And that's something I look to see to continue to happen in the industry, where they're almost going to force you to take it before you actually really wanted it. And so that's something actually we kept in mind this year as we continued with our booking, is we looked at it and said, okay, if this happens, is everything okay to happen? We try to be as conservative as possible, because a lot of times if we don't have something, I can usually, since we do take advantage of booking, I can usually call my rep and say, hey, I need X, Y, and Z item. And they'll say, yeah, we've got it in stock, and they'll send it to me. It's normally not a problem. It's usually on the biggest, hottest new items that we run into an issue with getting. But yes, it's thankfully got a little bit of a grace period, normally of about 30 days.
Yeah. So how are you with stress and anxiety?
So there's been some challenges over the years. I mean, it's definitely not as stressful as what I was going through under corporate accounting. That was something I was kind of tempered in early. And so that gave me a lot of perspective. A lot of the reasons I got out of corporate accounting, I remember one of the defining moments for me is I was on a federal tax team. State tax was working on the return. We already had the federal return done, and I was sitting on a call at 4:00 in the morning and needing to be back in the office at 7 with these guys just because they couldn't make their mind up. And that to me was a defining moment when I said, I'm done. I have to make a change in my career path. And being what I've been in here, the stress is the same, but it's different. But going through instances like that has helped me to kind of be able to take a step back. What I always try to do is, if something feels like I can't figure it out or something's frustrating, I'll usually try to shut my computer and walk away from it, and then I'll come back to it and see if I get some kind of clarity on it. And being religious, going to church and things of that nature, I believe a lot of things happen for a reason. And so what I'll try to do is not force something to happen. If something's not happening, if I'm facing a lot of roadblocks, things that seem to be out of my control, usually I'll take that as somewhat of a sign that maybe I need to back up a little bit, take a look at the bigger picture, and maybe come back to it after some time. And that's typically how I try to manage any kind of stress or things of that nature. Try to plan the best I can, and then have conversations with having dad that's been in business for over 40 years. A lot of things I can take to him and say, hey, this is what's going on. What do you think? And usually can get a lot of just a sounding board anyway of maybe some way he resolved an issue in the past that would help now. But I mean, small business ownership always carries a certain amount of stress. And I think going into it, getting into the small business realm is something that there's a lot of stress that's almost accepted that you're going to have to take on. Actually, that was something I was asked often by a lot of guys I know that are still in corporate accounting. They asked me how I could take that leap and do it. And I just said, really, guys, it's just something, it's kind of an accepted evil. You just know it's coming. And you prepare yourself the best that you can for it. And it's not going to be the easiest path, but being driven and really never taking no for an answer. That's kind of something ever since I've been in college. I couldn't get something that was in my control to kind of balance and to work out. I would try to find a way to do it. And so that's how I kind of handle stress levels, is usually, like I said, taking a step back from something is a lot of what I'll try to do. And I'll say, well, if I can't make this work, I'm feeling overwhelmed by it, I'll just kind of back away from the table and say, I'll come back to it.
That's a cool thing when that happens. It puts a smile on my face anytime I do it. Like, because I will work long hours and I'll be on the computer and whatever. It's like 7 or 8 o'clock. And Joe's like, come on, honey, punch the time clock,
Yeah.
And I'll be right there. Something just is taking longer than it should, or maybe the computer is like lagging, or just things, right? Things that just aren't going smoothly, and or I can't really resolve something, or I can't really, put 2 and 2 together or whatever. And the next day, it really amazes me, like when I get back on the computer, how easy it is to do whatever I was just struggling with. And it's so important to walk away when it's starting to feel like you're up against a wall in any way at all, big or small.
100%. And that was something too, that coming out of the accounting background, that was taught to us on your balance sheets, on certain tax returns, some of your M1 forms, M3s, those numbers have to balance. And if you're sitting there, I remember working long hours, I'm going, I just can't get this to balance. I don't know what's wrong. We've looked through everything. Everything's flowing. A lot of times it's a transposed number, and you come back to it 4 or 5 hours later, you'll look right at it and go, up, there it is.
Right in front of your face. Yeah.
And so I try to apply the same thing here with what we do in the store. And a lot of times I found too, not rushing into a decision. If something feels like it's not working, there's usually a reason. And usually a lot of times if we back away from it, give it a little bit of time. I mean, I've had brands that we've wanted to sign. They've come back to the table and said, hey guys, we'll work with you on something. Or sometimes it works out for the best. I'm happy we didn't sign a brand, because a lot of things now, TikTok's been driving a lot of this on trends. That's been something else we've learned about riding waves on certain trends. A lot of products we won't bring in. If I see just out of the blue, I start getting demand for it for say 3 weeks to a month. Used to, I would maybe try a few, bring them in, see what happens. I've learned now, give it 2 months and it's gone. There's no more demand for it.
I could see that. That's definitely a sign of the times. So, yeah. Could see that.
TikTok has made retail in some ways very challenging, because it is driving, especially guys that are under the age of 25 that are on TikTok all the time. I see it in particular in our hard gear side. Right now, big swim bait rods are a trend. I don't look for it to hang on more than maybe 4 to 6 months, maybe.
Yeah.
And so it's one of those, you try to ride the wave some if you can, but in a lot of cases, we've just got where we stay like the tortoise and the hare. We just stay slow and just keep going with what we know works, and it's paid off for us.
Nice. Makes total sense. Makes me wonder some of the things that Joe asked for Christmas, if they're not just trending.
And it happens.
Yeah. No, I could see, because he's on TikTok and he's like, look at this for fishing. And he has like this fold up cutting board on the boat. And I was watching him try to cut a fish the other day, and it was like slipping all over the place. So next thing you know, is TikTok showing him. It reminds me more of like a floor mat. It has all the little like rubber little bumps or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if that's trendy or what, but he's like, and then he wants a Bubba knife. If I've Bubba.
Yeah, but Bubba knives have been around a long time. They're a great product. But yes, you're right. Yeah, those folding cutting boards, those come in and they go out every couple of seasons. Toadfish was one that still has one. It's a great product. If you've got it on a surface, you're right, that will hold it still. If you don't have it on something, it'll slide all over the place.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right on that. It's been something that's been interesting to watch.
Marketing is so different nowadays. So let me just say, so I've been self-employed for like 25 years. And 25 years ago, the internet was barely around. I did Yellow Pages, a newspaper, which Yellow Pages sounds so weird for me to say right now. But yeah, Yellow Pages was where I put an ad in the newspaper. I've tried different things over the years, but now personally, I'm just I'm changing a little bit, but I've been a firm believer in social media. I've done billboards, I've done magazines, I've done everything I could think of. And I feel like social media is where it's at. Although in the last few months, I'm reconsidering the local newspaper, because I have this feeling people are going back to some basics. So where do you like to advertise?
So we ran into the same problem. We've done the local newspaper as well. Didn't get much out of it. We're in Amelia now and in the Islander. We're in those. We've been in those pretty much since we started. That's always been a go, especially for the tourist market. But yeah, social media is the big driver. Instagram's a big one for us. We haven't been on TikTok that long. I had a customer that asked me about getting on there, about doing a post together, and we did it, and it gained us some views, but really Instagram, Facebook's our main advertising. But yes, the advertising game is even still the way that it's changing, and it's changing so rapidly. But it's hard to find where to put that advertising budget though. Because you do, I mean, billboards and some of these other publications, I mean, it can be thousands of dollars.
Yeah, the billboard I had was $1,200 a month, and it wasn't necessarily a very big one either. And I did it for a year, and afterwards I was just, while I was thinking about, is this working for me or not? First of all, we always ask customers that come in the Shotgun Club, how'd you hear about us? Not that they always answer honestly, like they might just pick something to be done with the form, But I think like 5 people said the billboard. After a year, I was like, oh gosh. But then I think $1,200, you could take a fifth of that for Facebook ads. I mean, and have huge success from the Facebook ad, So yeah, thinking about where to spend those monies. Although I get shut down a lot on Facebook because of the guns. A lot. It's a problem for me.
Yeah, and the spamming stuff off of Facebook has gotten exponentially worse over the last 6 to 8 months.
Yeah.
The amount of spam messages and things we get off that has really gotten difficult. Instagram has become one of my favorite platforms for advertising. It works. That and Instagram stories. I found if we post from 3 to 5 days a week plus do stories, I mean, we get great exposure.
Yeah.
But you're right. Doing that people math with figuring out how much dollars it costs to get that one person in the door, it can be killer sometimes.
Yeah. So you actually run ads on Instagram? Yeah.
As of late, I haven't probably run an actual social media ad in probably about 8 months where we've done a paid ad. Most of what we've done is just producing a lot more content and putting it on there regularly, and we're getting pretty good exposure as a whole. Now, after the first of the year, we may do something a little bit different. We just revamped and redid our website, and so we're working on some different things there and trying to get that up and going. We actually have just a regular sign out by the road. We just went and made a colorful sign there, and that draws a lot of our traffic if people don't already know we're here.
I agree with that. I don't know if I've seen the new sign, but that road has so much traffic. I think that's smart to have a sign out there for sure.
It does. It's a bottleneck for the island. You either have to go by the beach or take that road, and so we do. I mean, for the folks that come back and forth from north to south end, I mean, we capture pretty much all of that traffic. We've got a big Crane Island base, but they all see that sign that's right there.
Nice. Right there. That's good marketing right there.
Yeah, and it was a nice one-time payout, easy enough. I mean, easily done. I mean, it was one of those things because we were spending thousands of dollars a year, and I'd get to the end of the year doing the taxes, and I'd look at it and I go, how much did that actually gain us? And so about a year and a half ago, Dad and I sat down and said, okay, we're going to have a new advertising goal. We're going to cut a lot of this that's just not driving traffic.
Yeah. Nice. Well, I've always been a fan of the Islander magazine, so I'm glad that's one of the ones that made your list. And what was the other one you said you do also?
It's Amelia Now.
Okay.
They've got a fantastic tide chart in there.
Yeah.
And so we get on their title page in there every month. But yeah, the Islander is a great publication. We're always in some of their other items throughout the year, the gift list and some of the other things. So yeah, nice. I love the publication.
Nice. Well, before we wrap it up, I want to tell people they can get some free goodies from dongrant.com/free, whether that's to my mental training, my Mind Mastered app, or even a free golf cart rental at Amelia Shotgun Sports. So can you share what's one piece of advice that you would pass on to anybody listening, whether they're entrepreneur or fisherman or just a human living life? Like, what would you like to pass on?
Mainly, it would be to have fun. Just whatever you're doing, have fun. Because I get all kinds of crazy looks being a CPA and running a fishing store. I mean, folks look at me like I'm out of my mind. I'm a big believer in you get one life, you get one time to be out and to go. And I think you need to enjoy it as best you can within reason. I mean, of course, there's things that shouldn't be done, but within reason. You should just enjoy whatever it is that you're doing. It doesn't mean you don't have to work hard, that there's not stress, there's not anxiety with it, but just keeping those big picture goals in mind would be one thing that I would just recommend to anyone is just enjoy your life because it is short. Time passes fast. Like I said, I can't believe we've been in it 5 years. It feels like we just started. So, just have fun. That would be what I would recommend. Just enjoy whatever it is that you do.
That's some great advice. And much needed, I'd say. A lot of people don't necessarily enjoy or have fun. You know, they kind of it's like Groundhog Day, over and over again, and living in some misery in their head with that self-imposed, because they really just don't know how to think differently or process life differently.
It is, and it's tough. And as I saw it in the accounting world, I felt for a lot of the folks that I worked with, a lot of them wanted to branch out and do something different, but they just never took the first step to do it, which it is a scary step. I mean, not to belittle it. It is something that is life altering. It is something that there's a lot of risk with it, especially being younger. It was something I said, I'm going to try it while I don't have as many responsibilities, and just get out there and just see what happens. And thankfully it's worked out well. And I know it's not for everyone, but definitely would recommend it. I think small business ownership is something that's exhilarating. It is a lot of fun. I know entrepreneurship is on the downtrend a little bit. It was very trendy when I was coming out of college. A lot of people wanted to be entrepreneurs, but they did not understand the work that went into it. And I mean, it's a lot of times it's not a glamorous life, not a fun life. You sacrifice a lot of family time. You sacrifice a lot of social time to get your business off the ground. And so at times it can be daunting, but if it is something you enjoy, the other piece I would say is just lift your head out of the weeds sometimes and just take a look around. I saw something one time about looking at the sky for 2 minutes a day and just looking up night, day. It doesn't really matter. It puts a lot of things in perspective because we're always looking down either at our cell phones, either at the computer, might look visually out while we're driving, but how often do we actually look up and just take in everything for a minute? And that does help me sometimes too, to clear my mind, is I can just go out and just kind of look up and there's just something about it.
That's great. That's great. Mindfulness and being present. I actually recommend to clients that they do little things like just stop to actually hear the birds because they're singing. We just tune them out. Like your ears can pick up on the sound, but we're not stopping to actually listen to them. Or you can stop and you can feel the sun on your skin, or you can observe the ants crawling around or anything. There's so many things happening around us all the time that we just ignore or take for granted. And it's definitely a good piece of advice to suggest that people stop and enjoy the moment.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I mean, it's something like you said, especially with birds and things of that nature. A lot of times we take it almost as white noise. It just gets blocked out. We're running outside doing something, not really paying attention. And so I think it's something we have so much around us that we can take in, especially where we live here. There's just so much beauty around us. It just goes underappreciated.
Nice. Yes, I absolutely agree. Okay, well, tell everybody how to get a hold of you and your business, like address and website, contact info.
Okay, so you can look us up at RennWorksOutdoors.com. We have a fully functioning website on there. It's got all of our business information. We're open Monday through Saturday, 9 to 5. We're at 2440 Lindale Road in Fernandina Beach. Also, our phone number is 904-310-6794, or you can find us on social media, Instagram, Facebook at RennWorks Outdoors.
Sounds awesome. And I'm glad that you guys are doing so well and that you're doing well for the holidays. And I can see that I'll be making a trip over there in the next few days for some Christmas presents. And folks, come see me on Amelia Shotgun Sports. And also you can follow me on all the social media sites for all of my businesses. So follow along. And thank you, Josh, very much for all your insight and information and sharing your story.
Anytime. Thanks so much, Don. Greatly appreciate the opportunity.
Of course.
Thank you for tuning in to the Mind Mastered Secrets of Excellence with Don Grant. Whether you're an elite athlete or pursuing success in your career or personal life, Don Grant's expertise and insights are here to guide you. Don't forget to visit dongrant.com/free to grab your exclusive free resources, hypnosis audios, mental training tools, and even a golf cart at her club. If you enjoyed today's episode, follow, rate, and share this podcast. Stay connected with Don on all social media platforms for more inspiration, tips, and updates. Remember, mastering your mind is the key to unlocking your full potential. Until next time, keep pushing your limits and striving for excellence.